Everybody knows all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us by our beer of choice, Johnny Cuba, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. Got a lot of fun stuff coming from Johnny Cuba as well. We'll be telling you about European roots of the Caribbean soul. Start your evening. Maybe tonight you want to kick back. You'll watch the Heat with a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny at your local Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Now, you always got to drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here is our friend Jessica Blaylock, BALLY Sports, fresh off one of the better wins for the Panthers last night. I did a poll yesterday, Jessica. ZASLOW Show 2.0 poll, very controversial. What was the Panther fans' confidence level going into Tampa and getting 2 points? And me and the grand majority of the voters were not confident. I did not feel good going into that game last night, especially no Barkov, no Sam Bennett again.
Yeah.
And really, for the most part, really for the first, certainly the first period, the Panthers dominated that game.
Well, and oh, by the way, factor in how good Tampa is at home. I looked at their home record yesterday, and it's 22-4-3. So you talk about, a challenge walking into that game, like you mentioned, not only being without Alexander Barkov and Sam Bennett, but you're also going in, you're playing a super tough team in a super tough environment. And really the start of that game for the first, I would say 3 minutes or so, it was really Tampa who was kind of dominating and putting a ton of pressure on the Panthers. And then, from that point on, the Panthers really took control of the game, just completely took over the game and never really looked back after that. And give a lot of credit to that Stahl line, Eric Stahl, Ryan Lomberg, Nick Cousins. They have just been so good. And so, once Stahl gets that first one, and then Anton Lundell gets one, and Eetu Oosterainen, and then we thought even in the final seconds of that first period that they had scored on the power play, and it was the 4-0 lead. Despite that one getting wiped off the board, give the Panthers a ton of credit for the way that they were really able to take over that game, especially being down a couple centers and really just everybody doing their part in order to get a very, very critical, very, very much needed 2 points in Tampa.
How about the coaches too? 3 for 3 challenges last night from both coaches. I understand usually when the coach challenges an offside, which was the first one that Paul Morty's challenged, if they're, I feel like when the referees say coach's challenge that the play was offside, I feel like those are normally going to be won because if you're challenging the offside, like that's not a judgment call. It's either offside or it's not offside. But the other two, the goalie interferences, you never really know. That's very subjective. And both teams, I thought were both no-brainer goalie interferences. That was wild.
Well, and what's so crazy is, not so much, I think, when John Cooper challenged the Forsling goal for goalie interference, because you're still at a pretty early point in the game and the period's coming to an end. And, it's definitely worth a challenge. But for Paul Maurice to have the guts, I'll say it that way, to challenge that goalie interference, because you think about it at that point, if that goal ends up standing, not only is it now a 1-goal game, but the Lightning are going back on the power play.
Yep.
And we know that they have one of the top power plays in the NHL. So to be able to have the courage to challenge for goalie interference at that point in the game, knowing that if you don't win that challenge, that can completely possibly flip the entire complexion of where the game is at that point. It was a great challenge, and I'm so glad that it went in favor of the Panthers. And by the way, I did legitimately think it was goalie interference. But how many times do we see those calls not go in favor of the Florida Panthers? So I think Ed Jovanovski and I we were looking at each other and we were just keeping our fingers crossed. And we were like, okay, please, please, please let this be called the way that it should be called. And sure enough, it ends up being a critical moment in the game. That goal gets taken off the board. And then we saw, the way the rest of the third period played out. So I think the only thing that you need to clean up from last night is obviously the number of penalties that they took. these high stick penalties, these, just it's really the penalties that can kind of kill the momentum in a game.
Let me ask you about this, because I wonder if you've ever talked to Jovo about this. So the Panthers are super undisciplined this year, right? Like, that's what people say. They take so many penalties. The third period, including the final 2.5 minutes where they pulled the goalie for the extra skater, the Panthers were at the man disadvantage for half the third period. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder, how do you make a team disciplined? Okay. Oh, this Panther team, they're very undisciplined. What does the coach have to do? Do you have to say, hey, don't take penalties? I don't understand. How do you make a team disciplined or undisciplined?
Right. And I'm sure that is a conversation that has been had multiple times between the coaching staff and the players this season. But, it's tough because I've obviously never been out on the ice, and I don't know what it's like when you're getting caught up in trying to make a play, or the intensity, especially of that game last night. I mean, we saw on full display, especially from that second period on, why this rivalry is so intense and why this rivalry is so heated. And you think about it, in the midst of trying to make a play, it seems so easy to say, okay, just keep control of your stick, right? Okay, don't, trip somebody by sticking your stick too far into the play, or whatever it is. You say those things and they seem so obvious and so easy to say, but then in the moment, how difficult really is it to not maybe get caught up in the play, or to not maybe try and do a little bit too much and take an offensive zone penalty or whatever it is. So I don't know if I have the perfect answer to that. I think really at the end of the day, though, it's just being more aware, if nothing else, of controlling your stick. Or just making the smart, guys always talk about it. Make the simple play, make the smart, simple play. So I don't know if maybe it's just a matter of making a more simple play, making a smarter play, not trying to do too much, kind of all those cliches we always talk about across the board in every sport. But either way, these games where the Panthers take a lead and really are playing such dominant hockey, the only way that they potentially, in any way, shape, or form, let a game like that get away is by taking penalties. So that's really, I think, the only thing, especially down the stretch. There just has to be a little bit more awareness of playing smart, disciplined hockey, because these games are also important. You don't want self-inflicted wounds.
What do we know about Barkov? Is there a chance he plays tomorrow?
I don't
Bennett,
think
Bennett
so.
Too, for that matter. Bennett too.
Yeah. I think there's a better chance of Bennett coming back.
Okay.
And I honestly, I don't know. This is not me speculating. This is more just
speak for the team. Speak for the team.
Hey, there's nothing I like more than wild speculation, right? No, but I mean, I'm just thinking of it from a logical perspective. Buffalo, Tampa, Nashville coming up, Pittsburgh, which is a potential 4-point swing. The only thing that I can think of is that Barkov's injury must be worse than what we initially thought it was, because I can't think of any other reason that he wouldn't be playing in those games. Barkov is the ultimate competitor. He's your captain. I know he wants to be out there. So not that they're ever going to give away injury information, and understandably so, but I just think that the only way that he's not out there is if he really genuinely can't be. There's no other reason that's going to keep your captain not on the ice for these critical games unless he legitimately cannot go. So, hopefully he comes back soon. And hopefully Bennett comes back soon, because Bennett is a super important player as well, just as far as that sandpaper mentality, and a similar guy to Kachuk, in that he's not going to let any shenanigans fly out on the ice, plays with that physicality, plays with that, that tough mentality. So hopefully, two important guys, hopefully you get them back sooner rather than later.
So we look at the wild card standings here. It's essentially 6 teams, 7 teams fighting for 2 spots.
I don't think Ottawa's done yet. Washington, Pittsburgh, Islanders, Buffalo, Panthers, Detroit, Ottawa.
Yeah, 7.
I described it last night. Literally, it is a traffic jam around the wild card spots. And Whew, it is going to be, buckle up your seatbelt, folks, because it is going to be a wild ride down this final stretch.
It seems like we're actually closer to the Islanders, even though the Islanders are 4 points ahead of us than Pittsburgh, who's 3 points.
Yeah, I think they have.
The Panthers have 2 games in hand on the
Yeah.
Islanders, while Pittsburgh has 2 games in hand on us. And Buffalo, for that matter, has 3 games in hand on us, even though we're tied in points. So, yes, 7 teams fighting for 2 spots. And it's like, I feel like all those teams there compared to a team like Carolina, who's first in the Metro, the Rangers are third in the Metro, Toronto's second in the Atlantic. Like, the Panthers are fighting for one of those wild card spots, and you have those other teams that I just mentioned who are all gearing up before Friday's trade deadline, and they're like adding top pieces.
Yeah, well, and that's what makes it so difficult, honestly, around this trade deadline, is because this year in the league is so incredibly defined by parity. Whereas last year, by the All-Star break, we essentially knew the teams that were going to be in the playoffs. They were basically just playing down the final stretch for positioning, right? Whereas this year, there are so many teams that are a lot better. And it has made it really, really difficult night in and night out, to get 2 points. And even against Columbus just beat Buffalo the other night. Anaheim recently beat Pittsburgh, I think. Like, even teams that are at the bottom of the league, it's not an easy matchup. Just every night. Again, I know it sounds so cliche to say, hey, anybody can beat you on any given night. But honestly, in the NHL this season, it seems like that has legitimately been the case, where just even the quote unquote worst teams in the league are going to give you a battle. And especially down this stretch. Yes, you have a ton of teams who are playing for playoff spots. You have a ton of teams who are out of it, but guys are playing for their job. They're playing for contracts. They're playing for proving themselves. So it really gets to the point of this part of the season where every night your back is up against the wall. And I just asked Paul Maurice about that the other day, kind of how you coach these games, balancing that there's a ton of pressure on them every night, but also, do you not want to put too much pressure on it? And now you're making guys play out of structure, out of system. And he said, honestly, I want guys to feel pressure. This is like, the Panthers have essentially been playing playoff games for months now,
which will help them if they make the playoffs. It'll help.
It will absolutely help them big picture in the long run to know what this type of pressure feels like game in and game out. But yeah, I mean, that's the tough part is just getting back to what you originally pointed out, the number of teams that are playing for only 2 wild card spots, So you're going to have 5 teams who legitimately had a shot to be a playoff team miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough finish for a lot of teams if they don't find a way to sneak in.
I know the Lightning set the record like 5 years ago, and then it was Bobrovsky and the Blue Jackets who swept them out of the first round. But Boston's 47-8-5.
It's insane.
Are they? I don't know what the number is. I don't remember, but are they going to smash the all-time wins record, all-time points record?
They might. It's absolutely insane what they're doing. And at the beginning of the season, I always feel like the one thing that people always say about the Bruins is that they're just getting too old. Look at how long Brad Marchand has been in the league. Look at how long Patrice Bergeron has been in the league. It doesn't matter. They are still getting it done. And they do. They have such a balanced team. They have 4 great lines. They've got great blue liners and ultimately their goaltending, whether it's Linus Ullmark, whether it's Jeremy Swayman, they have been phenomenal, and they have just all played so cohesively as a unit.
Panthers have beaten them twice this year, right?
Yes, I think Panthers and I want to say Ottawa, I think, are the only 2 teams that have beaten them twice this season. Panthers for sure. Ottawa, I think, may have beaten them once in regulation and then maybe beaten them once in overtime.
Because the Panthers, that may be a first round matchup. The Panthers.
No, I know, and that's what is so nuts. Is I'm not even kidding. If the Panthers find a way to sneak into a wild card spot, I could see potentially anything happening in that series against Boston. Like all bets are, off the table. Anything could happen once you get in. So, and that, again, that's what's going to be crazy, right? Is that in the first round, you're going to have legitimately great teams get bounced from the playoffs.
Yeah.
That like Tampa and Toronto, they are bound to meet in that first round because nobody's catching those top 3 Atlantic Division spots. So we are going to have a rematch of Tampa and Toronto. Look at what Toronto's done with their trades, with picking up Ryan O'Reilly, the pieces that they've added. That is going to be, I think, an epic first round showdown. So it really is crazy, all of the potential conversations that we can have about what teams are going to make it in the wild card spots, what teams are going to potentially get bounced in the first round, because there's going to be some really good teams that are going home after that first week.
Without getting into Marlins stuff right now, because I don't want to do that right now, but I said earlier in the show today, Major League Baseball has, and of course Jessica's on the coverage, Bally Sports Florida with the Marlins all throughout the year. I feel like Major League Baseball has a really interesting buzz around it right now because of these rule changes and the clock. And there seems to be a lot of quirky stuff going on in Major League Baseball right now in spring training that I think has a really interesting buzz around it.
Yeah, I would like to list that I'm in a relationship with the new pitch clock because I am in love with it. This is going to be a game changer. Have you seen the average times now of spring training?
It's like 30 minutes less, right?
It is crazy the difference that the pitch clock is going to make. And I know that we're all going to have to kind of adjust because like hitters, I mean, look at Manny Machado stepping into the box for his first plate appearance, and he gets rung up on that.
He's going to learn. He's going to learn.
Ball. Right, because you're just not used to the game moving this quickly. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to bring fans back in. I think it's going to give a much better flow to the game. Things are going to be moving, but I think we all, in a way, are going to have our own personal adjustments to make, that even though this is a good thing to pick up the pace of play, because it's one thing that people have just complained about for so many years now. It's going to be, I think a little bit more of an adjustment for all of us than we realize right now.
I like it though. I like it. I think it's fun.
I like it too. I like it too. It's a game changer.
Jess, are we going to see you tomorrow night? When are you up next with the Panthers?
Yes. So I am working the next 3 games, the game against Nashville tomorrow night, the game against Pittsburgh, and then I'm working the game against the Vegas Golden Knights next week. So yeah, every single one of these games is going to be
this is the no joke homestand is what this is.
I like to joke around, just games that end up taking years off of my life because of how intense my heart rate is the entire time. But either way, these are the type of games that you not only need to learn how to play in, you need to learn how to win and have success in if you're ever going to have long-term postseason success. So either way, yes, I will be on the desk tomorrow with Jeff Chikrin for that puck drop against the Nashville Predators.
Now, that game against Vegas that you mentioned is on Tuesday next week. A week from tonight is Greta Van Fleet at Hard Rock Live. Are you going to see Greta Van Fleet?
Okay, so I'm actually super bummed about this because you and I, we love to talk about love to talk about shows. I just went and saw Rod Stewart on Valentine's Day by myself, had an awesome time. So Greta Van Fleet was obviously circled on my calendar. I can't go because I'm going out of town and I'm leaving that day. I'm taking a little mini vacation before baseball gears up, while I've got a weekend off of hockey, like just before life gets crazy again with the 2 overlapping. And I'm flying out on March 8th, so I can't go and see Greta Van Fleet, and I'm actually legitimately bummed about it.
I'm looking forward. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Maybe you can live stream the concert for me.
I'll do a short little video of one of their songs because I'm not one of those guys. I don't hold the phone out and record all that. Yeah, I take a couple pictures at the beginning of a show. And I got to put it out on the gram because I'm an influencer. And then I put the phone away. All right. I
love that. I'm with you. I go into concerts now and I'm like, you know what? I don't Like, I'm going to miss the show if I'm on my phone the whole time. So I pick out 1 or 2 songs that I really love.
And that's it.
Video of those so that I can remember the show. And then I just focus in on the music. So if I can make a request for Greta Van Fleet.
Let's go.
My favorite Greta Van Fleet song is Flower Power.
Okay.
I love Flower Power. And you can't go wrong with Safari Song.
Yes.
So either one of those, if you don't mind taking a little snippet for me, then I would very much appreciate it.
I will do that. I will do that. Jessica, excellent job as always. Hopefully these are all huge games down the stretch for the Panthers. That means something right to the very end.
Yes,
let's we'll be watching you tomorrow night. Great job, Jess. Thanks as always.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, ZASLOW.